Most people lose battles they never speak a word in, cornered, exposed, and controlled long before they realize it. In this video, we will solve the one problem that destroys the powerless: how to dominate a situation silently, using presence, psychology, and the unseen weapons of the mind. Power does not always announce itself with force. Often, it arrives quietly, like a shadow slipping across a dimly lit room, altering the atmosphere without uttering a single syllable. Observe any gathering of people, and you will see the same truth repeat. The one who speaks the least often controls the most. Not because silence is meek, but because silence invites imagination, and imagination is far more dangerous than anything spoken aloud. In the dark theater of human nature, the mind fills every quiet moment with fear, admiration, or uncertainty. Those who understand this invisible tension command a kind of dominance that words could never achieve. They bend the emotions of others, shift their perceptions, and steer outcomes, all without opening their mouths. Today, you will learn the art every ruler, strategist, and manipulator has relied upon: psychological warfare executed through presence, posture, and silent influence. In every arena of power, there exists a weapon more potent than force, speech, or reputation: strategic stillness. It is the discipline of appearing calm while others tremble, the art of remaining unmoved while the world around you grows loud and restless. And you, if you wish to influence people without uttering a single word, must understand why those who master stillness always rise above the noise. Consider for a moment the generals of old. Not the ones who screamed orders or raised their blades recklessly, but the commanders who stood silent on the battlefield, observing, calculating, revealing nothing. Their soldiers drew strength from their composure. Their enemies grew troubled by it. After all, what opponent is more dangerous than the one who refuses to reveal fear? Ask yourself, when you walk into a room, do you rush to speak, to prove something, to fill the air with noise? Or do you allow others to reveal themselves first, letting their nervous energy betray their intentions? Controlled stillness is not passivity. It is a psychological strike delivered before any physical one. When you remain calm, others project their anxieties, hopes, and insecurities onto you. They begin interpreting your silence, and in doing so, they expose their own vulnerabilities. This is why tyrants, rulers, and cunning advisors throughout history have used the same tactic. They let their enemies talk themselves into weakness. Think of the royal courts of medieval Europe. A single raised eyebrow from a silent figure could shift alliances. A ruler who listened more than he spoke often learned more than his spies could gather in months. Why? Because silence invites confession, stillness invites fear, and fear invites obedience. Look around in your own life. The coworker who panics under pressure becomes the puppet of the one who keeps a steady face. The negotiator who rushes to fill every pause ends up giving away more than they intended. The person who cannot tolerate silence is always the one who loses control first. But the one who breathes slowly, who lets others squirm during moments of tension, who shows no visible reaction, they are the one quietly shaping the outcome. You must understand another truth: human beings are uncomfortable with stillness because it removes predictable patterns. When they cannot read you, they are forced to imagine what you might be thinking. And imagination, unchecked, becomes a weapon you wield without lifting a finger. Picture a chess match where one player maintains a perfectly steady posture. No sighs, no frowns, no glances at the clock. Their opponent, meanwhile, shifts nervously, overanalyzes, and ultimately collapses under pressure. The silent player wins not because of superior pieces, but because of superior presence. Presence is a currency. Most people spend it recklessly. You must invest it strategically. So how do you cultivate this stillness? First, by mastering your breath. Slow, deliberate breathing sends a message: I am in control. Your body follows this message, and others sense it instinctively. Next, eliminate unnecessary movement. Fidgeting signals insecurity. Stillness signals dominance. Finally, discipline your facial expressions. A calm face, slightly unreadable, forces others to search for meaning, and that search gives you the upper hand. Remember, this chaos exposes the weak, but stillness reveals the powerful. You are not striving to be emotionless. You are striving to be untouchable. Your calmness becomes a fortress, shielding you from manipulation and allowing you to observe everything without being observed yourself. And once you learn to hold this stillness, for 10 seconds, then 30, then a full minute, you will notice something remarkable. People will start adjusting to you. They will slow their speech, lower their tone, shift their posture. Without saying a word, you will have seized control of the room. But this is only the first weapon in your arsenal. For true dominance requires another skill, one far more dangerous than stillness itself. It is the ability to command with the eyes alone, to direct another person's mind without lifting your voice or breaking your silence. And once you understand how to wield this next tactic, you will no longer rely on presence alone. You will control attention, perception, and ultimately the entire situation. Prepare yourself, for the next principle will unveil power few grasp. There are moments when a single look holds more power than 1,000 spoken commands. You have felt it before. A gaze that pierces through your defenses, that shifts your thoughts, that compels you to react even when you don't want to. This is not coincidence. This is psychological warfare executed through the eyes alone. Understand, this attention is the currency of influence. Whoever directs it controls the emotional climate of a room. And your eyes, when disciplined, become the steering wheel of human perception. Think of the courts of Florence, where alliances were built and destroyed in silence. A ruler did not need to raise his voice to dominate a chamber. A slow, deliberate gaze across the table could instantly signal threat, curiosity, or cold calculation. Why? Because people instinctively respond to where powerful individuals choose to look. Ask yourself, when you observe others, do you guide their attention intentionally, or do you let your gaze wander mindlessly? Do your eyes reveal your fears, your insecurities, your need for approval? Or do they function as controlled instruments of influence? Most people have never considered the power their eyes possess. They look quickly, anxiously, erratically. Their gaze betrays everything: desire, uncertainty, weakness. But the person who learns to hold eye contact with calm intensity gains an advantage few ever notice. Human beings, after all, fear being seen too clearly. Consider a historical example. During diplomatic meetings, seasoned strategists often used a subtle tactic. They fixed their gaze on the opposing envoy for just a moment longer than expected. Not aggressively. Not challengingly. Simply long enough to signal, "I see through you." This slight disturbance in rhythm was often enough to make the opponent feel scrutinized, exposed, and psychologically off balance. You can do the same. Imagine walking into a negotiation. Instead of scanning the room nervously, you let your eyes settle slowly on the person who believes they hold the upper hand. You do not glare. You do not smile. You simply observe them with calm neutrality. They will feel it immediately, and their subconscious mind will begin recalculating their position around you. This is not intimidation. This is asymmetric communication. Your gaze also determines your perceived confidence. A steady, grounded look communicates self-assurance far more effectively than words. It signals that you are present, that you are not rushing, and that you are not emotionally threatened. Those who project such stability become gravity wells in social interactions. Others are drawn in, adapting to their pace and tone. But there is another layer, one far more subtle. When you look away matters just as much as when you look at someone. If you hold eye contact briefly, then look away with strategic ease, you communicate indifference. Indifference breeds desire, compliance, curiosity. People chase what does not chase them. This is why skilled manipulators allow their gaze to drift deliberately during conversations. They do not give constant attention. They give measured attention. And because they are not eager to maintain eye contact, others work harder to earn it. That dynamic alone can shift entire relationships. Notice how, in daily life, the person who stares at their phone during conflict or pressure situations appears weak. Their gaze collapses inward. But the person who keeps their eyes up, Unshaken maintains psychological superiority even if they say nothing. Your eyes must become disciplined. Movement slow. Focus intentional. Attention selective. You must learn to observe before reacting, to settle your gaze before others settle theirs upon you. This creates a perceptual hierarchy in which you become the silent judge of the room. There is also the tactic of the delayed gaze. When someone enters your presence, you do not immediately look at them. You let a moment pass. Then you raise your eyes slowly and meet theirs. This signals that you choose when to engage and that you are not governed by external stimulus. It is subtle but devastatingly effective. Do you see how the eyes alone can dictate emotional tempo? But remember this as well: eye contact is not merely about dominance. It is about gathering intelligence. The eyes reveal micro-expressions, hidden fears, suppressed desires. By watching carefully, without rushing, without blinking anxiously, you learn more than any conversation could ever tell you. And yet, the eyes are only half the equation. For while they direct attention, another force commands the environment even more profoundly. A force that shapes how others physically move around you, how they approach, retreat, or hesitate. Prepare yourself, for the next principle will reveal how silent boundaries and deliberate posture create the illusion of status, and how that illusion becomes real. Power is rarely declared through speech. More often, it is established through space. How you occupy it, how others adjust to it, and how your presence silently dictates the terms of interaction. This is the essence of silent boundaries and the illusion of higher status. The ability to command without moving, to dominate without force, to rule without uttering a single word. Consider how ancient courts operated. A king's authority was revealed not merely through his throne, but through the distance others were forced to maintain. No one approached without permission. No one stood too close. The ruler's physical space became sacred territory, and by controlling that territory, he controlled the people within it. Ask yourself, do you guard your space with the same quiet authority, or do you allow others to invade it freely? Human beings instinctively respect the boundaries of those they perceive as powerful. Notice how people react when someone enters a room with slow, deliberate posture. They shift, they adjust. They create space around that person, even if unconsciously. You have seen this many times, on trains, in offices, at gatherings. Some individuals expand without speaking. Others shrink without being told. The difference lies not in words, but in presence. Silent boundaries are not about aggression. They are about signaling value. When you move with calm certainty, you communicate that your space is intentional, that your presence is not desperate for validation or approval. In contrast, those who lack self-possession tend to collapse their own boundaries. They lean forward too quickly, nod too often, step too close, laugh too loudly. Their movements betray a need to be accepted. Neediness, in any form, lowers status. But when you stand firm, relaxed, and unhurried, others sense that you answer to a higher standard, your own. In negotiation rooms across history, the most powerful figures used body language to bend the environment to their advantage. They claimed the head of the table not merely because tradition demanded it, but because that position visually asserted dominance. Even today, people instinctively avoid sitting in certain chairs or taking certain seats unless they feel entitled to them. Territory reveals hierarchy. You must begin observing how people position themselves around you. When someone steps into your space, do they expect you to move? When two people speak with you, do they angle their bodies toward you or away from you? Do others shift their posture when you enter the room? These tiny details reveal your perceived rank more accurately than words ever could. Real-life manipulators exploit this instinct masterfully. Imagine two colleagues entering a meeting. One places their notebook, water, and pen with quiet confidence, spreading their materials slightly. The other keeps their items compact, as if apologizing for taking up space. Before any discussion begins, the psychological hierarchy has already formed. You can shape that hierarchy intentionally. Start with your posture. Straight, grounded, relaxed shoulders. Not stiff, not aggressive. Simply stable, as if you have nowhere else to be and nothing to prove. Next, control your pace. People with low status move quickly, reacting to external forces. People with high status move slowly, forcing the world to adjust to them. Then, guard your physical boundary. When someone stands too close, do not retreat, maintain your ground. You do not need to escalate, simply hold. This subtle refusal to shrink creates a quiet tension, and the other person will often adjust backward without knowing why. This is the silent negotiation of dominance. There is also the tactic of selective proximity. When you choose to step closer to someone, do so intentionally, never impulsively. Proximity becomes a message: curiosity, scrutiny, challenge. When you step back, it becomes another message: disinterest, dismissal, detachment. A ruler once maintained control during a heated debate by taking a single step forward at the perfect moment. The room fell silent, not because of the words spoken, but because of the spatial claim asserted. One step, precise, measured, shifted the entire dynamic. You can achieve similar effects with far smaller movements. A turn of the shoulder, a slight lean back, a pause before sitting. Each gesture shapes perception. Each gesture broadcasts status. But understand this: silent boundaries alone are not enough. Space influences behavior, but the mind must be pressured as well. And the next weapon, far more unnerving, reveals why those who speak less often learn the most, gain the most, and control the most. There is a peculiar truth in the arena of power. Most people destroy themselves long before an adversary ever needs to intervene. They speak too quickly, reveal too much, confess what should remain hidden, and expose the very weaknesses they try to conceal. And this is why the art of withholding, of forcing others to reveal themselves first, is among the most devastating psychological tactics you can wield without uttering a single command. Silence, when applied with intention, becomes a blade that cuts deeper than any spoken threat. To understand this, observe how rulers throughout history handled their enemies. They rarely demanded confessions outright. Instead, they remained quiet, watching, allowing the guilty to twist under the weight of their own anxiety. In many courts, a simple pause, a measured stare, or a withheld response was enough to make schemers betray their fears and implicate themselves. Ask yourself, how many times have you felt compelled to explain more than necessary simply because another person said nothing? Human beings have a peculiar discomfort with empty space. When silence appears, most rush to fill it with justifications, excuses, or admissions that were never requested. Your role is to let that instinct work in your favor. When you withhold your intentions, you create a psychological imbalance. The other person cannot read you, so they begin projecting their thoughts onto you, and projection is the doorway to self-incrimination. Consider a simple modern example. During a negotiation, imagine you present your offer and then go silent. No defending it, no elaborating, no anxious waiting, just stillness. Watch how the opposing side panics. They will start adjusting the terms, questioning their own position, or attempting to decode your quiet confidence. They might even concede before you counter. Why? Because silence implies strength, and strength implies leverage. This tactic works just as powerfully in personal relationships. When someone tries to provoke you, your instinct may be to respond, to clarify, to fight back. But the person who remains unmoved, who withholds emotional reaction, forces the aggressor into a strange and uncomfortable mirror. They begin revealing their insecurities in escalating bursts, desperately trying to extract a reaction. Their anger exposes their dependency on your attention. Withholding is not passivity. It is control. It is the deliberate decision to let others speak first, act first, reveal first. Every word they offer becomes intelligence. Every movement becomes a map. And every confession becomes an opportunity. Think of generals studying their enemies' formations before striking. They win not because they are louder, but because they let the opposition show their hand prematurely. There is also a deeper psychological layer. When you withhold your emotions, your plans, or your opinions, others become uncertain. Uncertainty breeds fear. Fear breeds compliance. This is why some of the most formidable leaders in history spoke sparingly. Their silence created mythologies. Their unpredictability made others tread carefully. Do people walk carefully around you, or do you hand them your thoughts freely? Notice how, in any debate, the person who reveals less always holds the stronger position. They are harder to attack because there is nothing to grip. The more someone explains themselves, the more vulnerabilities emerge. You must learn to resist the temptation to over-disclose. Let curiosity work for you. Let others wonder. Let their imaginations exhaust them. Practice this in small ways. When asked a question, pause for a heartbeat longer than normal. When someone demands your opinion, offer a concise response instead of an entire monologue. When someone tries to uncover your intentions, give them ambiguity instead of clarity. Watch their behavior shift. They will begin revealing far more than they intended, simply because you denied them the comfort of knowing where you stand. But understand this, withholding alone is not the peak of silent influence. There is a tactic far more unsettling, one that transforms uncertainty into a weapon that keeps others perpetually off balance. It is the art of unpredictability, the ability to remain unreadable even after others believe they have understood you. Unpredictability is a weapon feared by every strategist and every manipulator, because it dismantles the foundation upon which control is built. People feel safe when they can predict you. They relax, they assume, they miscalculate. But the moment you become unreadable, when your silence, your presence, and your responses no longer follow familiar patterns, you become a threat their minds cannot comfortably contain. Think of the rulers whose reputations spread long before their armies did. Many were not the strongest nor the richest, but they mastered the art of becoming emotionally and strategically elusive. Their enemies could not anticipate whether they would negotiate, retaliate, or remain still. This uncertainty created hesitation, and hesitation, as every tactician knows, is the birthplace of defeat. Ask yourself, do people know exactly how you will react? Do they predict your movements, your emotions, your decisions? If so, they hold more power over you than you realize. Predictability is compliance. Unpredictability is sovereignty. Consider the battlefield strategies used by commanders who understood human psychology as well as they understood warfare. They would deliberately act contrary to expectation, advancing when retreat was anticipated, pausing when aggression seemed inevitable. This disrupted the enemy's rhythm, forcing them into reactive chaos. And chaos, when controlled by one side, becomes an instrument of domination. In everyday life, the same dynamics unfold on a subtler scale. The person who always responds immediately is easy to anticipate. The one who always explains themselves is easy to manipulate. The one who reacts emotionally on cue becomes a puppet dancing on strings held by others. But the individual who breaks these patterns, who responds slowly when urgency is expected, who remains composed when provoked, who observes instead of justifying, creates psychological dissonance. Others hesitate, they rethink, they doubt their assumptions. They adjust themselves around you because they no longer understand the rules you operate by. This is the essence of controlled unpredictability. Notice how social predators, those who exploit, deceive, or manipulate, rely heavily on predictability. They expect you to react emotionally. They expect you to explain yourself. They expect you to fear discomfort. But the moment you violate their expectations, you introduce a variable they cannot manipulate: uncertainty. You step outside the script they prepared for you, and suddenly the power dynamic reverses. Imagine someone confronting you with accusations or emotional pressure. They expect you to defend yourself. They expect you to reassure them or argue back. But what happens when you offer silence instead, or a steady gaze, or a calm acknowledgement without explanation? Their momentum collapses. Their strategy dissolves. They are forced to reveal their real intentions because you denied them the reaction they depended on. Another example, in a negotiation, unpredictability becomes leverage. You do not reveal your enthusiasm too early. You do not show desperation. You do not respond instantly to offers. Your pauses, your slight changes in posture, your subtle shifts in tone, all create micro-uncertainties that pressure the other party into overcompensating. They begin adjusting their terms to match your mysterious rhythm, unaware that they are negotiating against their own imagination. But understand this, unpredictability does not mean erratic behavior. It is not chaos without intention. True power comes from strategic unpredictability, a controlled variation that keeps others alert, but never able to read your core. You remain consistent in values, but elusive in tactics. This distinction is what separates the powerful from the unstable. Reflect on this carefully. The more someone believes they know you, the more they assume entitlement over your reactions. But the person who cannot be fully read cannot be fully controlled. They are consulted with caution, approached with respect, handled with greater care. Even in personal relationships, unpredictability preserves your psychological autonomy. You do not reveal every emotion the moment you feel it. You do not give answers simply because someone demands them. You allow space, you allow tension, you allow others to wonder. And in their wondering, they reveal more about themselves than you ever reveal about yourself. Once you become unreadable, you ascend above the emotional games that manipulate the predictable. But be warned, unpredictability becomes truly powerful only when paired with a deeper force, one that protects your mind while exposing the vulnerabilities of others. Emotional detachment is not coldness. It is not the absence of feeling. It is the mastery of feeling, the ability to experience emotion without becoming enslaved by it. And in the realm of psychological warfare, this mastery becomes the backbone of silent control. The person who cannot be provoked cannot be steered. The person who cannot be guilted cannot be manipulated. The person who cannot be rushed cannot be conquered. Think of the rulers who survived when others fell. They understood that reacting from emotion is the fastest path to defeat. Fear clouds judgment. Anger exposes intentions. Desperation leaks power. But the detached mind sees the landscape clearly, analyzing motives, intentions, and threats without becoming lost in them. Ask yourself, how often do you make decisions based on the heat of the moment rather than the clarity of strategy? Emotional detachment is not a retreat from humanity. It is the shield that allows you to step into conflict without losing yourself. History tells us of commanders who held their composure even when surrounded by chaos. Their soldiers watched their calm and drew strength from it. Their enemies watched the same calm and felt fear, because a person who does not panic is a person who is difficult to break. Do you project that same unshaken stillness? In everyday life, emotional detachment becomes a mirror that exposes others. When someone tries to provoke you and you do not react, they reveal their true aim. When someone tries to manipulate you with guilt and you remain steady, they expose their weakness. When someone tries to lure you into emotional traps and you walk past them without hesitation, they realize they cannot control you. Most people are not prepared to face someone who refuses to play their emotional games. Consider the power dynamic in a confrontation. The person who grows angry first loses. Anger is a proclamation of vulnerability. It shows the other person exactly where your buttons are. But the one who listens silently, whose expression does not fracture, whose breathing remains slow and grounded, that person becomes unpredictable, unreadable, and intimidating. Emotional detachment makes your silence heavier. It turns your presence into a force that unsettles others. But there is a deeper strategic layer. When you detach, you create mental distance between stimulus and response. This distance gives you time to observe, time to interpret, time to select the response that benefits you rather than the one your emotions demand. Most individuals react instantly, and their reactions betray more than they realize. But you are no longer bound to that instinct. You act when it serves your objective, not when your feelings insist upon it. Think of a negotiation. One side makes an offer expecting hurried enthusiasm or visible disappointment, but you remain steady, calm, unreadable. The silence stretches. They begin anticipating your reaction, then fearing it, then adjusting their position because they cannot decipher your thoughts. Emotional detachment gives you leverage because it denies others the cues they rely on to manipulate you. Even in personal relationships, detachment grants you clarity. You can care deeply without surrendering your judgment. You can listen without absorbing someone else's emotional chaos. You can love without dissolving into dependency. Detachment does not prevent connection. It protects it from distortion. When you can stand apart from your emotions, you can choose with intention rather than compulsion. The greatest manipulators in history exploited one universal truth: people cannot resist reacting. But the moment you stop reacting, you become the one who observes while others expose themselves. Your stillness pressures them. Your control unsettles them. Your calm becomes a language they cannot interpret, and therefore cannot influence. You ascend above the emotional battlefield while others remain trapped within it. But understand, this emotional detachment does not make you invincible. It makes you formidable. And once you combine silence, unpredictability, boundary setting, and emotional mastery, you step into a realm of influence most people never touch. Yet there remains one final truth, one that binds all the previous principles together and reveals the true architecture of silent control. If you wish to learn it, you must be willing to confront the darkest element of power, the way people willingly submit to the one who governs their mind before governing their actions. In the end, remember, this: influence is never loud. Control is never announced. Power moves in silence through the subtle shifts you create in how others perceive you. You don't dominate people by force. You guide them by letting them believe the direction was their own. The greatest rulers in history understood this paradox. They shaped environments, not individuals. They crafted narratives, not commands. And those who lived under their shadow never realized whose hand truly steered the course. Ask yourself, how often have you been moved by a force you couldn't name? How many choices were yours? And how many were the result of someone else's quiet design? This is the true lesson. Power is not in the strike. It is in the unseen preparation that makes the strike unnecessary. If this exploration challenged your thinking, good. That is where transformation begins. Now tell me in the comments what resonated with you most. Subscribe if you desire more strategies drawn from history's coldest and sharpest minds. And share this video with someone who believes they cannot be influenced, because they're the ones who most need to hear it.